I got to be honest, though, at least in my experience so far, there's a lot of syndication attorneys that don't really understand the nuances of a fund or more of a registered or qualified investment that they actually go through the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them just kind of stay, I do these syndications because I can plug in the information, hand it to my paralegal, they do it.
Mm-hmm. Do the simple Reg D just over and over and over.
Completely.
Yeah.
Definitely not what we do over at Crowdfunding Lawyers. We are always, you're dealing with the attorneys. We are pulling people out of Wall Street, people that have been attorneys that have been doing IPOs. We try to bring in the best. So little self-promotional. Hey, thanks. Yeah.
Pat on the back.
There you go. Next big thing. And I'm just going to actually make this super easy. We need to talk about investment terms, what you're actually going to offer to investors, and how you're going to say, okay, are you going to offer a preferred return, which is like an interest rate on the front end? Or are you going to offer a performance hurdle, which is like a prioritization of investors based on kind of the back end or what the asset sells for? So a simple example. I'm going to give you, Mr. Investor, 50% of the profits. But if you don't at least get a 9% annual return, I'm going to back off of my 50% just a little bit to make sure that you hit that number. I have a book. I created a book that has really deeper descriptions of all the different options, and you can see a little bit of the legalese. So check it out. Go to crowdfundinglawyers.net, ebook 1, and all the information is in there. So I definitely encourage you to download it and check it out. Now we know what we're going to offer to the investors, an important part of the financial analysis. We know what we're going to buy. Now it's time to deal with the legal stuff. The fun and exciting, working with your attorney to do the entity, to do the documentation, the proper documentation, because it changes based on how you're marketing and what the regulations are. So different things to think about. Like, are you going to use a portal? Technology nowadays is one of the most important things that, I don't know, Richard, what percentage of our clients do you think, guess, are using investment portals for their opportunities?
Probably close to 100% now. I wasn't one of our clients. I reviewed a PPM the other day that still had like, send us this in the mail with your check or money order. But no, it's funny because when I started doing this, it was, PDF documents that were emailed out, sign the subscription agreement, email it back, wire the money or whatever. And it just within 6 months, there was a 6-month period, probably 2019-ish. All of a sudden, every client was on a portal. And now the offering documents are online. You just click and look at them. You click a button to invest. You put in your ACH information. It takes the money. Like, it's super ultra streamlined now. And that technology has really changed the game as far as communicating with investors and raising money. All your financial reports are on the portal. Your K1s are on the portal. Like, everything is right there at your fingertips. It's a really cool thing. And they can add, videos of the properties, and they can, have all kinds of, Q&As, and it's really a neat development over what we had not very long ago. 5 years ago, nobody was doing this, and all of a sudden it was everywhere.
The market, the capitalization industry has changed a lot and continues to. I started representing as an attorney the securities mid-2000s. And at that point, broker-dealers were the norm. You're hiring a investment sales guy. They're underneath the broker dealer. Broker dealer's doing the marketing for you. They're doing the sales for you. The reason being, you weren't allowed to advertise, send your information online, driving traffic. You just simply weren't allowed to do that until the Jobs Act came around in, I think it was 2012.
Mm-hmm.
That opened up a brand new world of crowdfunding lawyers. You know what? I get asked this question so often. I want to hear, Richard, your answer. What is crowdfunding?
Crowdfunding is the most annoying term in the entire world. I absolutely hate it because it means so many things. So what most people think of a crowdfunding, they think of Kickstarter, Indiegogo, which are like basically pre-sales of products. People think of GoFundMe, which is like donations for various causes. Someone's dying of cancer and they need money. You can do a GoFundMe, right? Those are all crowdfunding, but not the crowdfunding we're talking about. We're talking about regulated investment crowdfunding, which is basically raising investment money from the crowd, from everybody. And to make things even more confusing, there is an actual regulation crowdfunding, which is weird. Most regulations have like A, D, S, whatever, and then they made a word, regulation crowdfunding, for this one. So there's a specific regulation crowdfunding for raising money online. And then we talk about crowdfunding a bit more generically, where we also include Reg D and Reg A, where you can go out to the general public and raise money, and there's no necessarily requirement that you have a specific registered portal or anything like that, like under regulation crowdfunding. So in a nutshell, raising investment money from the crowd, from people, is what I call crowdfunding.
And that has really just become the norm of how to find investors. You don't have to hire the broker dealer. You don't have to pay their commissions. You can get out there and just start letting the world know what you're trying to accomplish and what you're raising capital for. There are different suitability investor requirements based on the rules. But at the end of the day, a big part of where we focus is on those opportunities that you can do these social media posts, the webinars, the email blasts. It just has opened up the opportunity to market way beyond where we were in the past. Mm-hmm. And Richard, you mentioned 2019, everybody starts moving to the portals. It really took off in 2020 to 2021. The rules started, but that's where they expanded the crowdfunding from the regulation CF. You used to only be able to raise $1 million. Now it's 5 million. It's way more functional. And there's even more benefits to it that we'll talk about in a second. But I'm going to, again, just hang back. And Richard can talk a little bit about offering documentation.
Oh, God, bane of my existence. So if you're an investor, if you join an investment club or an education group and people start pitching you deals, they're going to give you investment documents or the PPM, or private placement memorandum, is the most common one that you're going to see. And various exemptions from regulation use different terms for their offering disclosure documents. So Reg D, which is the classic private placement, uses a private placement memorandum. Reg A, I think it's called an offering circular. Reg CF, it's called the Form C. May also be called offering memorandum, if I'm remembering right, they use. So anyway, basically all just the same thing. It's going to be a big, thick document that's going to say, who's raising the money, how much are they raising, what are they going to use it for, who's behind it, and what's their experience, what's their past performance, what other things have they do, what qualifies them to be trusted with your money, right? And then usually at least a third of the document is going to be risk factors. And this is basically several attorneys sitting in a room and brainstorming all the ways the deal could possibly go wrong. So, you could lose your money this way. You could lose your money that way. A hurricane could take out the property, or a new tax law could be passed that harms the property, or this regulation could, affect our profitability or our ability to sell products or lease to tenants or whatever the business is. And so it's just going to be like, whole list of these things. Don't say we didn't warn you, because we warned you every possible thing that could go wrong. And if anyone were to read those documents and take them seriously, they'd never invest at all, because it's so overwhelming how many ways things could go wrong. Like the disclosure document proper, the PPM or the Form C. And then you're going to have exhibits that are going to be, the governing documents of the company. So if it's
Before
an LLC.
we move on, can I just make one quick comment to the risk?
Sure, your show, man.
It's our crowdfunding lawyers. But I do just want to mention, a lot of this document is risk factors. It is to warn the investors of how things may go wrong, but really it's a benefit to the issuer, to the sponsors, to the management. Reason being, as long as you did what you said you were going to do, if the investment doesn't work out as planned, as long as that risk factor is properly disclosed, then the investment just failed. There is not a claim that, you didn't tell us that another building may have been built or burnt down or whatever. You didn't tell us this stuff. If the risk factors are in there, you get to say, well, I warned you. I'm sorry for where it's at, but I still warned you. All right, just run that out.
It really, as an issuer, that disclosure document is your first line of defense. And we actually had a client several years ago that got sued by an investor claiming that he had made all these promises and all these claims with no basis, and on and on and on. And that ended up, after several years of litigation, ended up getting thrown out. And the reason it got thrown out is because everything was disclosed in that PPM to the investors, in that disclosure document to the investors. And so it really is, don't say we didn't warn you, because we warned you. And you as an investor should know what you're getting into, because you've read the PPM, right? So after that PPM, what's going to be attached or with it, or if you're on a portal, most of these are on portals now, is going to be, another link on the page. You're going to have exhibits, which is going to be like the company agreement if it's an LLC, or the bylaws if it's a corporation, or if maybe it's a debt offering, and so you'll have the actual notes and loan agreements that go with it. So you can read about the company, how the company's governed, or how the investment's going to be handled, kind of the rules of the game. You're going to see business plan materials that we talked about earlier, with the pro forma, or with trailing financial numbers, or with target numbers, something that, and that's the business plan really is kind of the sales piece, that you're hoping your investors will put more weight into than they do the risk factors, right? To see, here's the upside potential of this investment. Here's what we think we can do.